Greetings, Darklings. My name is Father Sebastian, and welcome to my podcasts Vampire Adventures, Music and Magic, all for the paranormal side of the world. So, today we have a special guest. I got the opportunity to hang out with them last week during their fang making session. Now, for me, making fangs is my primary passion, and I've been doing it for over 25 years. So today, without further ado, I would like to welcome my very special guest, Constantine.
Hey, hello there. Hello.
Hello, Constantine. It's been a whole week since we've seen each other.
Hey, it feels like I just talked to you yesterday, honestly.
Well, we did it. Well, it was a Target. Um,
Yeah,
yes, and preparing these wonderful curtains for my new podcast. And thank
yeah,
you
I'm
for being
actually
my very first guest.
you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And I do quite am jealous of those curtains. I wish I had some myself.
Well, they're very well priced at Target.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at the side of my curtains right now, thinking maybe it would have been nice to have them in behind me instead of on the sides of me.
Well, what's good is that the red and the rose is definitely out of touch.
Yeah, I tried to, be a good host by, setting up some things that can, really show the odds, show people that, hey, look, I'm somewhat alive and I do have roses, although they're not real. So
You do glisten like a vampire, I will tell you that.
well,
Vampires don't perspire, they glisten.
well, tell that to the ones of Twilight.
Let's not talk about such topics here on Father Sebastian's experience. They are cursed creatures. So
uh,
let's get down to the interview because I have so many questions for you that we enjoyed the cannabis last week and it was wonderful. But we I picked you up at Bordner's in front of Bordner's, and then we went to have some vegetarian food, which was my first experience really with vegan food on that
mhm.
level. And then we made your fangs, and then we went to Bordner's, and we went to the Vampire Lounge. So we got to know each other pretty well in the first couple hours we were hanging out, and then we had a wonderful night. We had so
Yeah,
many
yeah,
lovely
we did.
people up in the Vampire Lounge, and you were a great contribution. You got to come back.
Yeah. I do actually plan on coming back fairly soon to the to Los Angeles. So
Next time, don't take an 8 in the morning flight.
I honestly will not do that next time. I'm going to probably take a 7 a.m. flight just to live life with better on the edge.
You are nuts, friend. You are nuts. Okay, so let's begin. Can we get a little bit of backstory about who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, sure. So most of your viewers probably know I'm Constantine Lating. I'm from the UK, obviously, but I also lived in China for a while, for actually a very long time in my life. I lived in Guangzhou, and then I came to America, and I've been here ever since. I currently live in New York City and in California. So when people ask me where do I live, kind of toss a coin to what part of the hemisphere of the United States I'm in, when it
Mhm.
comes to where I exactly live. Um, and my anyone that looks at my last name knows that my family is pretty prominent in the world. So without going too much into, my family, you can look that up yourself. But yeah, I've been teaching and I've been letting teaching spiritual teaching and teaching science to people on how to live longer and better lives, how to be more, prosperous in their life, and how to really, step out of the boundaries of what we call your normal lifestyle, you know, and it really show people that there's another way of living life that is healthy, that is full of full of spirits, and that follows science also. That you're not too head in the clouds with spirituality and disregarding all science. It's a it's a good pyramid of both sides. You got science and spirituality together, and I teach people that in seminars and whatnot of how to really um coincide the two together.
Great. So what try to remind me, because I have so many friends, and I place a good friend and a good potential friend on me forgetting where I met them. Okay, because if I forgot where I met them, so where did we meet? What was your first encounter with Father Sebastian and Constantine Letting?
So we actually met in New Orleans,
Mm.
and it was a vampire ball approximately 3 years ago now. Yeah, it's been
Before the
three whole
pandemic.
years. Yeah, because of the pandemic. Um, and I have very good memory. We met downstairs in the front of the actual venue. Okay, we met in the front of the actual venue. I was there with my two friends, and you had greeted me and you complimented my outfit, and then you walked away with haste. As a,
As I always
yeah,
do during Endless Night. I'm bopping around
yeah,
from person to person. I can't,
yeah.
ADD kicks in.
And then you found me not long later, and then you start talking, and we actually took a few selfies together, which I think I still have on my phone to this day.
Oh, cool. Well,
And yeah, and then we kept finding each other like throughout the night, but I didn't really see you until the next day during the other special events. So
well, we've got a big plan for this New Orleans and Halloween. We have the first Halloween without Anne Rice,
mm,
which is going to be difficult. One of the things that Anne Rice to me is the true queen of the vampires, and we even considered sainting her, but canonization takes a long process. So, what mythologies and fiction, what has inspired you to shape your persona?
so really, what inspires me to, shape of, being, who I am is, really a lot of different mythologies around the world. So if I look back at it and I go back into, when I was a younger age, what I liked the most is I liked studying different things of biblical nature.
Okay.
Different, when I first, read the Bible, the First Testament, and I saw, reading, you realize that, half of these people that they're talking about in the First Testament weren't human. Giants, vampires, and all these other things, being mentioned inside of the Bible. And so that piqued my curiosity into, other mythologies. And, I start looking at the Greek and Roman mythologies. And, I start really, formulating that, all of these things that are happening around us, was once written in a book. So so what I start doing and coinciding that with my life is, you know, dressing in a way that is, coincides with mythology. So what really, got me, is the, mythology and, seeing how the way different mythos dressed in, the way they wore their robes, or it's, the way they just looked, overall, in general feeling, the way they looked, I really find it fascinating, especially as a child, adolescence. And, I wanted to incorporate, as much as that into my style as possible. Now, as I got older, I became more adopted into, dressing in suits and ties, more formally. But, as a younger age, I was really fascinated in that. And I think that pretty much shapes, how I look today. I always tell people my goal is to look like, you know, Aphrodite with a male's body, or chiseled out like a Greek statue,
Well,
So
I've seen your chest in some photos, and I will say, if I was gay, I would be sweating. Woo-hoo.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Yes.
Uh,
So, what like what gurus do you follow? Like
so,
you mentioned Sadhguru,
mm, yeah. Uh,
soil.
Yeah, so Sadhguru is someone I follow heavily. I take a lot of inspiration from them. They're somebody that I watch and I learn from, very good inspirations when it comes to life and how to live something called, as I would call, you have your life, but then you have your lifestyle.
Okay.
What your life is the essence of what you are, your heartbeat, the way you can feel the palm of your hands. That's your life. What your lifestyle is what you're wearing, who surrounds you, what you're doing, and then of course there's influences on lifestyle. And you know reading his teachings and stuff like that really taught me about different aspects when it comes to your lifestyle and how you don't want your lifestyle to dictate your life. You never want to have what you're wearing as a shirt be a judgment of your life. And I believe we talked briefly about that during our nice vegan dinner
That
that we
was
were
great. I
having.
loved it. I felt great for 2 days after that. And in fact, I went
Yeah.
back the next day and had lunch there.
Oh, nice, 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 nice. I actually plan on going back there myself. I didn't know I was so close to where my agency was, so that's actually good to know. I never bothered to look it up. So.
Awesome. So I've looked into the Sadhguru a lot. He has a whole concept of save the soil and that we're taking the nutrients from soil. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Sadhguru's who he is and where he's from?
Yeah, so I cannot speak on his behalf on a lot of things. I only can speak on what I see and what I've read briefly about his history. But he is from India, and I believe he came into uh, the guru life while he was, as he stated, was climbing up a mountain. I believe that what he stated, and that he never imagined himself becoming a guru. It just happened. It wasn't something that you trained for. It just happened. You know, almost like when you wake up in the morning. You just happen to wake up in the morning and not, pass over. Yeah.
So, Constantine, one of the things that we discussed at our very memorable vegan lunch was you talked about vegetarianism and longevity. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah. So, basically, when it comes to being a vegetarian, and longevity in general, what you're essentially activating is deactivating, I should say, is a hormone called mTOR. So deactivating mTOR is because of certain amino acids in your diet. So if you were to lower the amino acid complex in your diet, the leucines and all the other amino acids, what it does is deactivates something called mTOR. Now, you want to have mTOR activated and not activated at certain times, but vegetarians have less activation of mTOR. And when that happens, you actually live longer because it activates certain survival genes, ancient survival genes that are in your body. And there's several survival genes. There's AMPK, there's mTOR, and then there's SIRT. And there's a specialized SIRT called SIRT1. And all of these activates when you have certain almost certain environments in your body. For instance, SIRT can be activated through certain mechanisms of fasting. Um, and mTOR is activated for growth. So if you want to grow and get bigger muscles, you can eat a lot of meat and activate mTOR. That's why vegetarians are normally seen as a lot smaller individuals versus a meat eater who can eat, a chicken all day. Yes, they will grow a lot of muscles. That is a fact. They will be bigger. That is a fact. But you sacrifice a short-term effect for something that is more long-term. And so it's been shown that people who have adopted a vegetarian lifestyle do live longer because they have less amino acids going into their body. And they have something as what some scientists are called fasting mimicking almost, depending on how much they eat. Kind of like a ketogenic diet, which is a fasting mimicking diet. So it's actually quite fascinating, when people ask, can somebody live all the way to 150 or 120, and how that corresponds with vampirism. If you think about vampirism, you want to live a very long time, and you want to outlive everyone else because it is the true concept of vampirism. So if you take, what I study, longevity and lifespan and in certain biologies, and you correspond that, it sounds like you're trying to become immortal, you know?
Yeah.
You're trying to beat the clock, of your biological age. You're trying to reverse your biological age. And I believe that is true vampirism, at its core. So if you're 80 years old and you retire at the age of 80, but say at the age of 80, you find a new career. And most people at the age of 80, what do? They, they sit back, they relax, they just count on their days if they make it to 80. But then you can have the other 80-year-old that he turns 80 and he's looking at a new career almost, he's finding something else to do. He's thinking 40 years ahead, at 80 years old, which is sometimes unheard of, I'm sure we both know a lot of people that are 80, maybe. Half of them, you can ask if half of them are actually looking at new careers at that age.
I have a very good friend named Merle who I work out with very often, and she's 83 years old and a fireball. She's a pistol. And
Mm,
I love hanging out with her, and we get to walk 5 miles a day together.
mm.
And she's really cool. I would love you to meet her sometime. And she
I would
even does,
love to.
she's famous for her not new her New York New Year's Eve party where she has it at 9 o'clock because the ball drops in New York at 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
So everybody can go off to other parties. So she does the pre-party, the pre-game for New Year's Eve.
Well, it sounds like she's living a very, prosperous life and, full of light. And that is what we want to thrive for at the age of 80, and that's what real longevity is, and that's what lifestyle is, and health span, you know. There's health and there's health span, there's a life and then there's lifestyle. And what, I wish to achieve and wish to do is maximize this this health and lifespan so we can
Mhm.
ultimately have a better life. And in that, in a correspondence, any vampire, you know, can look at and go, okay, this is something that we need to look at. This is something that we need to implement. Is drinking every day really helping? Is smoking tobacco every day really helping? There's been studies shown that small ounces of white wine or red wine is actually good for the cardiovascular system. Excessive, amounts of beer is not, but beer does have vitamins in it. It has vitamin B's, all your vitamin B's in it because it's made from yeast. But you can get that from other sources. So don't drink a lot of beer, everyone, and think you're getting lots of vitamins. You're actually getting too high of alcohol content. So, there has to be a balance, and the cool thing about wine is it has something called resveratrol in it, which resveratrol has been seen, at least in mice models, to extend lifespan and overall longevity.
So
And
red
so
wine's
when
very
you
good for longevity.
in small portions, red wine can be good for the cardiovascular system. And it does have small contents of resveratrol, which is the outer shell of a grape. So, and it has something called polyphenols, which, are very good for longevity also. They activate, certain longevity mechanisms within our body. So, and you look at all of this compiled study and data, and you really think, man, are humans trying to be immortal? Just like, a vampire,
You know,
and if I,
Elon Musk, I saw an interview with him today, this morning, right before him, and the journalist was asking him, should we have immortality? And Elon Musk, and was he spending a lot of money on life extension stuff and whatnot? And Elon Musk said that one of the disadvantages to immortality, and there's many advantages, one of the disadvantages is that people hold on to their ideas, and you have a very conflict between the new ideas of the new generation and the old ideas of the old generation. So, who, I mean, is mortality helping us grow as a community and as a culture? That's a very interesting question that I'd like to talk about in the second round, because that would take a lot longer discussion. But then we have on the other side people like Aubrey de Grey, who considers aging a disease, and we want to cure it. And he's a professor in the UK. So, speaking about this, okay, you have a copy of Black Veils on you, don't you?
that's right, it's right here.
Okay. Go into the table of contents and look up the immortality pillar in the Book of Day. I think you'd find this very interesting.
Give me a moment to find it.
It's a big book.
Yeah. Looking at the table of contents now. This is philosophy. Oh, I think one of the pages are stuck together. Okay. We're having a difficult time finding immortality. Do you know what chapter this will be on?
I
I
don't
don't
have
think
a
I even
copy
got.
of me. I have a copy of the next book, Strig of Eye, but I do not have a copy of that book with me.
Okay. Just
It's in the Book
looking
of Day,
for.
Immortality Pillar.
Looking. It must be further back into the book.
It's in the middle of the book, actually.
Okay, I only got to the beginning of the book, so probably haven't even seen that chapter yet.
Immortality is definitely a center point in the vampire culture, and it's especially important with the living vampires, or the life force vampires, compared to psychic vampires and sanguine vampires.
Hmm. I am actually not seeing immortality pillar. Unless
Immortality
I'm.
chapter.
Oh, there's an actual chapter called immortality.
Yes.
Okay, that makes things a bit easier. Ah, all right, we're all the way on chapter.
I think it's like chapter 14, I think.
Wellness pillar.
Okay, it's
Is
after
that
that. Wellness is physical.
solve?
Immortality is.
Okay, I see glamour pillar, creativity pillar,
You're going the wrong way. Go
cults.
the other.
All right, sovereignty pillar,
Next,
survival pillar,
after that,
fertility
perpetuity.
pillar,
Perpetuity. Sorry, but
fertility pillar.
yeah. Okay. I'd like you to read the first. Okay. Constantine, now that you've found that pillar and we're talking about the concept of immortality, let us read that chapter or that chapter head. Okay. And I want to see if you relate to it.
All right. So we are currently. So am I just reading the first page?
Yeah.
All right. Let's just go with the first paragraph here. Big chunk of this paragraph. It's actually pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So vampires love and have a passion for life on such a level that this black veil represents the quest to conquer death and live beyond the normal limitations of a human lifespan. Hmm. How is this possible? Aren't there questions about ethics of overpopulation, aging, disease, or how this is not natural? The Black Veil vampires see opposite. They think from a perspective of self-preservation, with love for life as they seek to enjoy benefits and longevity and vitality which modern and future science has begun to unlock in a way never imagined before or even thought of to be possible.
It's very
You
much
know,
what you're talking about.
and it's very, very much what I'm talking about. And if just reading this this passage within this book, really shows that there is a passion for longevity. There is a slight science behind it all too. And I think, whilst, we can, talk about vampires, we have to be scientific about it all. And I like that, it does mention, concepts of science because, what I'm a strong believer in is there's there's a road and a route that you have to take. You have to be as much spiritual as you are scientific.
Mm-hmm.
And and if you're too spiritual, you're going to disregard all science as, something that you shouldn't be doing because it's against you. And on the flip side, if you're too scientific, you think everything else that you can't see with your eyes is a hoax immediately, without a question. So, I think it's a fine line of balance. And, that first passage, really shows that, you know, there is a thrive for a fine line and a balance there. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is something that a lot of vampires, within the community needs to understand. And then really look at the table, to really look at the context of it and understand it truly. What is self-preservation? How do you extend your lifespan? And as I mentioned earlier, extending your lifespan drinking a lot and doing all these other activities that may be fun for the short term. It may be great for the short term, but if you're really trying to become, as the book stated, then doing all of those activities is counterproductive to what the book is even about and what the mythology of a vampire is even about. And don't get too caught up in Hollywood about vampires drinking and doing all these stuff all day long. Let's be a bit real and ground ourselves in reality when it comes to the concept of vampire. And I think that passage really shows that you know you want to ground yourself because you want to live long. You want to have a healthy lifespan that can give you an amazing life free of cancer, free of diabetes, free of all of these metabolic diseases that you get from the disease called aging. And you are absolutely right. The doctor from the United Kingdom, he is very right. Aging is a disease, and it can be preventable with proper medication and proper, again, lifestyle. And it's not just for vampires, it's for anyone alike. But more importantly, for vampires, is have a healthy lifestyle. You know, think about, what you're doing and how you do it. Think about when you eat and how you eat. Fasting is a great option. Vegetarianism is a great option. Mediterranean diets are a great option for all vampires. Keto is a great option if you want to get really strict with it. You know, just, really look at all of that. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a person that studied a lot of stuff throughout my life. Okay. But I talk, of course, anyone watching this, please talk to your doctor before implementing any changes to your dietary lifestyle. Just because two vampires told you one thing is correct doesn't mean it's correct for everyone else, So, pretty much keep that in mind, everyone. But, you know, uh, while you're reading this book, if you got a chance to read this book, and you get to that chapter, you know, really think about, is everything in my life good? Am I going to live to the age of 80? You ask the average person, how long they want to live. A lot of them say, I drop when I drop, or I just want to live to 80. I just want to live to 70, even. Where that's a faster. A lot of people on this planet are living past the age of 80, but they're miserable. Am I correct?
Yeah.
They have cancer, they have all kinds of metabolic diseases, Alzheimer's, which is diabetes type 3 for your audience that doesn't know that. And all of these are metabolic diseases that are caused by aging that can be reversed. So you got to really ask yourself, although you're going to live to 80 years old, do you want to be miserable? Or do you want to be happy? Do you want to die happy or sad? And vampires, we're lively creatures. We don't need to get to 90 years old and really be like this all day. Probably not in a coffin, but you're going to wish you were in one. It counters anything that a vampire can be. you know. So if you read any novels from Anne or any movies, what does vampires do? They're lively creatures. Am I right?
Well, the stat certainly was. Louis, on the other hand, Louis.
Yeah, yeah.
We got to wrap it up now. So there's two more
Mm.
questions I have for you.
All
Okay.
right.
Is there anything that you would love to give the audience a message to? Anything that you have plans for the future, or any inspiration that you can throw their way?
So, um, what I want to leave with all of you is, really think about, what is the difference between your life and your lifestyle, and understand that there is a difference, you know, between those two, and do not confuse your life for your lifestyle. And I think that is going to be something more to dive into a little later, but really think about that. When you're at home with your family and your friends and stuff, think about what is your friend's lifestyle versus their life, and what is your lifestyle versus your life, and you'll start understanding that certain things you can eliminate that can or add to your lifestyle that can help your life. And also, you know, really, start studying biology. I believe all vampires, anyone at that, should be very knowledgeable in biology. I think it is probably going to be the number one thing that gives you knowledge to really save your life, you know, because we're going to a time in the future where going to a doctor's office is so much work, right? What if you
Telehealth,
can,
telehealth, telehealth, telehealth.
you know, and last thing I want to, mention is um I am, looking at, different ways to, extend, lifespan, and different ways to make lifestyle more exciting. And one of the things that I do personally, a lot of you guys know I'm a model, I'm an actor, I'm an entertainer, I like to make people laugh a lot. And that is my lifestyle. It is not my life, it is my lifestyle. And I urge people to do what makes you happy, even if you're made fun of for it. Do what makes you happy, because a healthy lifestyle brings a healthier life. And that is what I want to leave with everyone.
Thank you. And finally, where can people find you if they want to look you up?
So you can find me on Instagram at Dusk Lord Constantine. And you can find me on Facebook by the same username. You can also find me actually on all social media platforms by Dusk Lord Constantine, or you can look me up on Google, Constantine Lating. And yeah, you can find me there, and you can always free to message me if you have any questions about anything that we talked about. And if you want to dive more into biology, I'm always open for technical discussions.
Constantine, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on the Father Sebastian Experience. Rock and roll. And I look forward to hanging with you very soon. Don't be a
You
stranger.
too as well. I will not. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for watching. The best way to support us on this vampire adventure is through the crowdsource funding website, Patreon. Please support our sponsors, Endless Night, Vampire Ball, Sabretooth 3D Fangs, and Vampire Magazine. Thank you. Rock and roll.